From 21 to 25, she served as president of Culture Action Europe, the major European network for cultural policy and advocacy, as Lars explained a little bit earlier. And she is an active member of ICOM and APOM. She is currently developing her doctoral research on mediation as an institutional strategy, exploring how cultural organizations can use experimentation, feedback, and shared authorship as tools for structural change. Inês has led large-scale public programs, European cooperation projects, and capacity-building processes for museums and municipalities in Portugal and in other countries, always with a clear purpose to help institutions move from intention to transformation. Can we start?
That's not a problem, yeah, but I'll just explain the cards while we're waiting.
Yep.
And I love the bios that ChatGPT does, by the way. It's really great. I discovered things about myself when I was, and I thought, this is finally the nice bio that I have.
But so, is something wrong about it?
No, it's perfect, but okay. The thing is, when we're writing about us, right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem also we're going to talk about in the keynote speech. This idea of how others see us and how we see ourselves and how we relate with the others. Because we're always talking about this difficult balance between people, institutions, and the problems that we say we solve. Because it's also about the stories that we're telling about ourselves and how they affect the way we work. So it's this mix. So you have the cards, right? And maybe we'll take the opportunity, since the fantastic and very patient technical team, I must say, takes care of stuff. I'll tell you, each of you, take this moment, we'll just anticipate one of the dynamics. You have the card, and the card has two concepts. Your concept is the black one, and then you have the gray version. You have to find your pair. So somebody in here has the other word. You're the black word, you're looking for the person with the gray word. So let's take this moment, since we're all sitting down and doing nothing, to find the person that has the other word. That's a very lazy way of doing that. I was imagining a full room of people walking around and talking. You're not?
Where were you sitting?
Tradition.
I already found someone. There must be someone else.
There must be somebody else?
Maybe it's...
No, but there is...
There's another one? Oh, you have another person? There's another person out there.
Happens.
Because we have repeated pairs.
Yeah.
You don't have a card? Where is Kerem? Kerem has a card. Kerem! 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 No card. So now you can sit with your pairs. Kerem is going to take care of you. And Joaquin doesn't have a pair too.
I think I gave you one.
Yes.
But he has a pair? Do you have you found?
Because this was the case that Lars had.
But the thing is, like, I need another person to give a card.
I am a
But you're a heritage?
I need another person that doesn't have a card, actually, for finding a match for this.
Yeah, maybe just switch.
Is that the future?
Yeah, go and. Oh no. heritage.
So this one.
Yeah, heritage goes there. So if anybody, no. If anybody is lost without a card, you can join them as a trio. Join them as a trio. You can join as a trio because he also has a heritage card. You can join as a trio. You can join as a trio, and you haven't found your other person? Which one? Does anybody have the experimentation card? Experimentation. You can join there, the trio.
Is there anyone else with care?
Is there anybody else with care or discipline? Care or discipline? So, let's improvise. If there are too many cards, you organize in trios. I need a person for care, discipline. Care, discipline? Who are you missing? Care, discipline. So you're together. You can make a trio. Okay. And you're lost. Authorship. 4 of us. So you can split in 2 or keep the 4. You're okay. Okay. Everybody has a pair. You're paired? You're paired? Okay. So now everybody can settle down in their new groups. Yeah, you sit. Everybody can sit down in the groups. Can you reorganize yourselves together? So everybody can just has found their pair. You're together, okay? You can just, and you're going to sit there for the keynote now. You're okay, great. You can just sit. Go back to the places with the groups, with your newfound pair. Imagine this as a conceptual Tinder.
I was thinking more as a kindergarten project.
Kindergarten project, the one of pairing the fishes or whatever, yeah. Yeah, I was inspired by certain people's experience about that. Yeah. So, what you have in hands, and as I told you, I'm just anticipating. Don't worry, I'm also a lecturer. I'm used to this. All the kids talking all the time. But I've just anticipated one of the dynamics of the keynote presentation. And the goal was, as you can see, you have the idea of the cards is to be fluid. Because the thing is, we are usually working in a balance between these two concepts, the two values that you have in your hands. And this balance between, for example, to be more conservative because we're keeping something safe, or experimenting because we're taking risks and we want to reach somebody, right? And this is an example of the many cards that are out there. But I'm not happy just with that, of course. And at a certain moment, Kerem, wherever he is there. He will distribute new cards for you to have a discussion about the questions or the taboos that we're going to distribute. Not yet. I'm just going to give him those cards. They're there. So Kerem already has the next magic cards, and the goal is then we'll just reserve 3 or 4 minutes for you to discuss that question, and then you can just put your output as a group in the Mentimeter or just present it very quickly so I can finally close the keynote speech. Because as Lars was saying, the idea was for me to do the hard work and not you, but why not? It's about distributed leadership, distributed authorship. I'm doing it. It's an example. Okay, so let's do this. So this keynote will not only be me speaking to you, it will be about all of us. That's the idea. And it's also the idea of bringing something home that will make us a little bit sad, because pain is necessary, and a little bit happy too, okay? Like this inspirational. So when I can start the actual keynote, just let me know. I don't know if it's... Okay, we're on, thank you. Okay, so my keynote was, and let me see the time before... Okay. This would be 11 o'clock in Portuguese time, just for you to know. So, I wanted to talk about this because I've spent my professional life discussing how to make museums and heritage relevant, not in the relevance, because of course they're relevant, but how to make them meaningful for their audiences. And when we first thought about this concept, we were really into, when we created the company 26 years ago, we were really focused on the why. So I would like to start this big circle, because this has a lot to do with our work as cultural professionals. And the fact is that without knowing it at the time, in a very naive way, when we created the company was all about the why, the identity, and that core it's still the same after all these years. And the goal was, how we could take full advantage of heritage and museums to connect with people. And by connecting with people, by teaching these institutions that are very heavy, usually they have their expertise completely focused on their collections, so on, so on, so on. By making them meaningful for the people, how could we make those people, the end users, feel more empowered, more listened, and more active citizens? Because as Lars was saying before, and everybody was saying about that, because at the end of the day, what we want is people to be there in the public sphere talking, even if it's about difficult ideas, or even if it's ideas that that have some meaning for themselves, how they can escalate them and impact others. And I really believe that heritage and museums are the perfect vessels, okay? And they're the perfect vessels because they are knowledge institutions, because they are memory technologies, because they are the heritage that we chose at a certain point as a society, even if we think it can be an elite decision to keep that heritage. So there's something meaningful even in that. And even just to share with you one perspective about that, is that even when we're talking about decolonization, one of the things that gives me some peace in the whole discussion, a very meaningful discussion, is that in the middle of everything, those objects are being kept safe. So, and that's really something that can relax us in the sense that they're not going to be destroyed in the process of returning them or discussing them, because people were busy making them safe places. But the thing is, what I find many times is that when we're discussing this, and this is, so some years later, many years later, I found this model by Simon Sinek. He's a tech business management guru. I like him very much. He's one of those top 10 or top 20 TED Talks. And he talked about the circle. And he said that the secret for success in organizations was when the organizations focused on their identity. So I said, kudos for me, MAPA works. We know our identity, that's the core. But usually what we do, because there's time, there's a lot of stuff to do, we have to relate with other people, we talk a lot about how we do stuff and what we do. And we don't focus on why we do it. And the fact is that if we go for the why, we have these red lines established immediately. It's like when we do a scientific project and they say you have to go for the problem and that will guide you in the forest of many interesting things to do. You remember that's one of the things about, this is that kind of stuff. It's the thing that keeps us looking to the horizon when things are very, very tough. And we know that the day-to-day life is tough. And at the same time, it's the thing that helps us to say no or yes in different perspectives. But the thing is, many times I feel that we run for the outcomes because that's what it's funded. That's many times where the money is or where people are pulling us to. and then we go for a public speech about diversity or inclusion, but we don't go in for the real structural thing. These are beautiful campaigns. This one is, I show it a lot in my courses. It's a beautiful video from Art for All, from a campaign made by Portland Museum of Art. This is in Portuguese, just a wink to the Romanian people, since we share a lot. Maybe you can even understand some parts of the Portuguese, but it's about participated visits to the colonial collections. But there's always a problem with good intentions, you know? Because when we focus on the outcomes, when we focus, and we're not talking about the why, we're basically, I'm just going to put here so you can read it, sorry. It's because we have a saying in Portuguese that is, hell is full of good intentions, right? So the thing is, we can have the good intentions, but there's a problem with that. They're not enough. So they're usually part of a cycle of patting ourselves in our backs, so it's not really transformative. They don't change structures, they don't redistribute power, and they don't build trust in the communities because we're always in this comfortable spot of not really changing, we're just saying it's out there. And then it brings another problem, and that's the big problem that I feel we'll always have, it gets even more difficult because we deal a lot of time with funders or policymakers, our bosses, and this creates a lot of pressure to do it right, over and over again. And the fact is, our work is not about getting it right. It's about getting it done and try again, and get it done and try again. Because each time we do something, it's like we're changing the ship, the Titanic, not the Titanic, we hope, but small degrees, right? And each time we shift our ship, we change its reality. So we have to overthink again. And that's another problem that you usually have, is that we're shifting, but then we don't realize and we don't reframe with that shifting. We usually only react to the external pressures because that's where the power decision structures come and the funding. And that's something that we've been discussing a lot in MAPA. And here, this is an old project that we closed in 2022. But it's a good example of a project that had a lot of failure from our part, from MAPA's part, in the project, and a lot of experiment. This project was a project about memories and experiences through inclusive digital storytelling. MAPA was the partner that was responsible for the shared Portuguese heritage through people that were in social fragile conditions. And when we started the project was approved, so it was all about working with people that usually don't have an active voice, and to incorporate their heritage stories and their heritage vision through an app about traditional heritage. So in Portugal, we would have the traditional description of the Jerónimos Monastery, World Heritage, from the historian point of view, but then we would have, for example, the vision of a migrant that had just arrived from Bangladesh, and to see how he would read that heritage from his own cultural perspective. And the idea was to have a touristical app that would give way to all these stories. So in Portugal, we were working with migrants. In Barcelona, they were working with cleaning ladies, the housekeepers. And the housekeepers actually created a union in the middle of this process, because I'll tell that, and they would have meetings at 6 in the morning before they would go to work. Okay, and in Paris, they were working with a disadvantaged neighborhood, social housing and such. And I'm trying to pick these words carefully because we don't want to put all these people in the boxes, but just to give you this glimpse of the ambition of the project and how sometimes how we design and think about the projects, right? Because it had to do with the call, so on, so on. This project was approved in January 2020. And everybody knows what happens in March, right? So suddenly we had a project that we had to work with people, create these digital narratives, but people were in their homes. And more, these people were in a terrible position, so how could we work? And we had a very difficult time. So the first thing was, how can we reach them in these pandemics situations, so all the health issues? And that was very difficult, so we tried to do webinars, but then we didn't have the contacts. And then we stumbled for the big failure of the project in a certain way that we overcome. Don't worry, it has a good ending. But it was, what can we offer them? Because at a certain time, what we felt is that we were being absolutely parasitic, you know? So we're being handsomely paid by the European Commission to do this project, and we are recruiting 12, 15 people to work with us through a period of time to share their vision, only for them to feel socially included or valued. Come on. So we went around this. We tried to pay them officially. So that was a no-no. But then we understood where we could get the value of this cooperation. And it was through a partnership with the nonprofits that got these people into work, learning Portuguese language and work skills for the Portuguese society. And that was a brilliant way of working, because suddenly there was value. And we connected with several museums. We did museums visits, and through the presentations, their conversations, and a specialized Portuguese teaching assistant that knew all the tools for that, because it's very important for us not to say that we do all the things. We don't have that kind of expertise. The project revealed to be a very nice project, a little bit like the study visits that we do with schools for conventional students. It had that upgrade. It was a moment of relaxing. It was a moment of sharing Portuguese culture, but in a very warm environment. And one of the things that we also did, and that was an important detail, was people were received always by the museum director, and they were always welcomed as VIPs. Like, welcome, we're so glad to have you here. This is a great honor for us. And that was performative, but it was interesting too. So this idea of going around and stumble with all the values and the ethics, it's really about how can we incorporate innovation? How can we learn from the stuff? And how can we really pinpoint what that is? And what is innovation? So the first thing is that we have all these narratives of innovation being a spark of genius or a brilliant thing, a brilliant mind, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, whatever. But usually innovation is not about invention, it's about recombination. It's about us getting the resources that we have in our own time and just refiguring, doing that. It's about moving places inside our organization. And it's about reusing. It's very ecological in a certain sense, because it's about getting, but it depends on listening, and listening inside our organizations. It's about, more than anything else, it's really about creating these spaces, the weekly meetings, the monthly meetings, channels where we hear everybody, and to see that from our organization, we have the material to innovate most of the times, because people, we know a lot, but we bring different perspectives because we're very different from each other. So we can be two people working in the same project, and one is reading one situation and one the other, and sometimes we don't even create the time for people just to talk about it in a very focused way. The other thing is about discomfort. We strive for the easy peasy tasks and to just solve things quickly. But sometimes we need slow relational moments. We need people just to take their time, and also we need to have these comfortable conversations. There's an interesting book from another management guru. It's called Radical Candor. She tries to connect it with female leadership. I don't think it's a gender thing. I think it can be shared by everybody, but this idea that instead of carrying grievances or saying that the project is not about me or you or that person made a decision. It's really about stepping up and speaking about that. And that makes innovation work. Usually we talk about these types of innovation. Technological innovation, that's the favorite part because it's easy. We usually pay for somebody to do a gadget or an app, and we can say that it was great. But we have to talk about social innovation. When we change the way we work, when we use, and that's basically our business as cultural professionals and organizations, because when we reframe memories, when we create space through artistic practices for people to have really tough conversations in a safe place, that's all about new innovation. And of course, that only works if we're open for our own way of changing in the organization. So, the thing is, what do we already know as an organization, but we haven't yet learned to do? That's the thing about our work. What's the kind of, this is one of our activities with a municipality, and it was a meeting of all the organizations of that specific municipality working together, and it was really a nice moment. But to do that, we have to keep failing forward. And what's failing forward? It's about learning with mistakes. It's making small experiments, taking small risks, and from that feedback, we design new processes. And sometimes the risks, we're talking about sometimes having a meeting, the housekeepers meeting at 6 in the morning. They first tried to do it at 6 in the evening, of course, but it didn't work. So let's see how we can do it. It's about the details. It's not about the big picture. The big picture, usually we've solved in the why, remember? It's about the details and the way that we're open to change our way of working. And if we share and we talk with others, and that's why moments as these are so important. That's why we still join together in conferences and meetings, because we really want to know what the other person is talking about. We can continue to evolve as an organization. It's fuel. Failure doesn't become like this big barrier, a bump in the road. It becomes fuel for new things, for new ways of doing stuff, for new projects. Right? So that's an important stuff. So that's my, as Joaquin was saying, that's my thesis for my PhD dissertation. That is the idea that mediation shouldn't be a department in the museum or the heritage site. It's not about visits or workshops. It's about an overall organizational position. And it has to be about building relationships that change us. It's about when we make our brick walls so thin and so porous that things just come in and they affect us and we can influence them back. So it's this idea that, and the idea that everything that we do as an organization is creating space for stories that we don't even know